Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Brandon Tom, co founder of HBG Capital. And today I've got Keith Borie on the show. Keith started investing back in 2005, so he's got quite a bit of experience underneath his belt. He's been investing in office buildings, multifamily, mobile home parks. He's got a home flipping company. He's done short term vacation rentals. He has done it all, it looks like. He runs BoBo Capital Ventures, which is his real estate investment firm that focuses on investing in affordable housing, specifically in the mobile home park and multifamily space. Keith, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Brandon. Welcome to, glad to be on the show.
Yeah, man, this is going to be fun because mobile home parks is something that I consider to be recession resistant. When the market tends to turn and things aren't going well, money pivots into the assets that are going to continue to do well. And mobile home parks have always been able to weather this storm because people are always going to need housing. And it's kind of like the most affordable option outside of, government housing. So I'm excited to jump into that with you today. Before we do, tell us your story. Where did you come from? How'd you get into this space?
Yeah, appreciate that. Kind of a roundabout way, really. I started as a real estate agent, and just started looking and helping clients, and always had an interest in investing. We started with, really just kind of the rental. By moving from one house into another, we had a house that my now ex-wife and I had built. And, it was our first opportunity to turn that one into a renter. We didn't necessarily want to sell that property. And so I got a little bit of landlord experience with the first one. And after that, started looking for additional opportunities. I did go through the 2008 time frame. I was a full-time real estate agent, actually had a brokerage during that time frame, and sort of lost my shirt a little bit. That's when I had an office building as well. So I dabbled into to that so I had an office, had a just a single family rental, and was doing well with real estate. And then all of a sudden it seemed like somebody had sort of turned off our income.
Yeah.
And Making a long story short, we were able to sell the single family. We were not able to sell the office building. It was an owner finance deal, and it was taken back by the owner, which was devastating to me. But basically, it got me in a spot where I decided to go back to school, kind of go back to the grindstone. And I had not finished my bachelor's degree, ended up finishing it, and ended up going out and applying for multiple jobs, and ended up with a sales management position. And since then, worked myself up to a sales director with this company. As I rebuilt my financial life, I started to reinvest, and started with a triplex, and then shortly after that bought a 10 unit, then multiple duplexes. And so really small multifamily is what I focused on for quite some time. I maintained my real estate brokerage and license during all that transition. And, I usually start my mornings with a cup of coffee and looking at the MLS. And that's what led me to the mobile home park space. Actually found one on MLS, which, is kind of unheard of. Although I've found two that way. So just happened to, I see it the first day it comes on the market. In one case, I was, a little bit short. They already had a contract, put a backup contract on it. In Texas, we have something called a backup contract where you can get in the backup position. The first one falls out, yours becomes the first contract. So what turned me on to it, Brandon, was really the cash flows were a lot better than what I was seeing in the multifamily space on these small multifamilies. And so kind of cut my teeth with my first one. And it was a total turnaround on these. It was all park owned homes. And so we did a lot of renovations, put new tenants in there, jacked up the rents. And that one I ended up selling. And it was sort of my proof of concept for me. And just before we had sold that one, we purchased our second one. And then we are right in the middle of our third one, which is a little bit larger here in all of them have been right in the San Antonio market. But again,
Uh-huh.
what I like about them is just I think they truly cash flow a lot better than others, and I've been able to take some that need a lot of work and turn them around to where they're a stabilized asset and producing for me.
Why mobile home parks over everything else? You mentioned the cash flow. Break that down for us. You were looking at smaller multifamily, you stumbled upon mobile home parks, greater cash flow. A lot of times that means greater headache with the tenant base as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it can be. It certainly can be. In fact, I would say, with the exception of one of them, most of them have been in the beginning. What I find is, at least with what I've purchased so far, is a lot of times I'm buying these from mom and pop owners, and they don't do a very good job of qualifying that tenant. And so I've basically, I starting with the, number one, starting also managing other people's properties. I've always, taken people through the proper process to make sure that they can afford it, that I'm verifying income, that I'm looking at their credit, all of those things. And when you do that and you're careful about who you rent, it's not to say you'll never run into a situation where you have a bad one, but the majority of them, have been good. And so, yeah, I don't know that there's necessarily more headaches, maybe at the onset before I have an opportunity to screen the tenants. But in the long term, if you do the right job with screening them, you are able to avoid a lot of those headaches.
Walk us through that because that seems to be the bane of everyone's existence when it comes to these types of assets, mobile home parks specifically, is getting good tenants in there. Because I've had a friend of mine, he does a lot of these, and we were in LA catching up. He said, Brandon, man, you wouldn't believe the week I had. And I was like, oh, you wouldn't believe the week I've had. Try me. And he goes, first thing out of his mouth, he's like, well, I had a tenant who wasn't paying, and she knew she wasn't paying, and she got kicked out of the property. She called me up and said, hey, I don't care that you kicked me out of the property and that I wasn't paying. If you don't let me back in the house, I'm going to burn it down. And she did.
Wow.
I
Okay.
was like, you got me beat. Done. How do you make sure you don't get tenants in your property? They're going to burn it down.
Yeah, I think if you go back, so a couple things that I look at. So I look at them making at least three times the rent amount. Okay,
Mhm.
for and these are primarily park-owned homes. Our most recent one is about half and half. It's about half park-owned homes, half tenant-owned homes. And when I look at it, I just try to verify that they do in fact have that. The only time I've really gotten myself in trouble, Brandon, is when I try to make an exception. And there's always that person that says they make X amount. Maybe they're self-employed. Try to look at, well, maybe I'll look at their last 2 months worth of bank statements to verify that there is in fact income coming in. And occasionally that's not necessarily worked out real well. But as long as you can verify their income, that goes a long way to showing that they can actually pay. Then, of course, looking at their criminal background as well. And not to say that there's not folks that have had issues in the past, but you got to kind of look at it and say, wait a minute, have they turned their life around? I mean, I'm all about giving people second chances, but you gotta kind of take a look at it and see what the trend is there. And then, beyond that, I just you use a little bit of your gut as well to see, what you feel about them. But for the most part, if I can verify those things, prior rental history is a huge one as well for me. And that's one thing I would say that I notice I see quite a bit more of than in, say, my small multifamily. I see a whole lot of people that say, "Oh, I'm living with a friend," or "I'm living with parents," or and I don't necessarily, if I can verify everything else, then that might be okay. But if you know, verifying their income is a little bit of a challenge. Maybe I'm having to look at bank statements, and they don't have any rental history. then then that's to me a red flag that I can't necessarily get over.
Okay, so you want to see 3 times the monthly rent. You wanna talk to some past landlords that they've gone out to. I didn't hear anything about a credit check. Is that part of the process, or do you allow a pass
I
on
don't,
that?
yeah, I don't pull. So I look for judgments. I look for prior evictions. I don't
Mm,
necessarily pull a credit score.
okay.
Don't look at that piece of the puzzle. But yeah, everything else I take into consideration.
Talk to us about the cash flow. You said you pivoted from smaller multifamily to mobile home parks. The cash flow was the key here. What do the numbers look like on maybe one of your last 1 or 2 deals versus what you were getting with smaller multifamily?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example on one of our current ones, which is small. We've got on this one. This is the second one I bought. It was only 4 units. Okay, 4 units, and they're paying 825 and 900, and we paid around 170 for the property. Didn't have to do any major overhauls with it. We've probably put in about, as far as improvements and everything, about $40,000. And the insurance is reasonable on it. The taxes are reasonable on it. And so, yeah, it's cash flows are good on that one. The first one that I purchased was a 7 unit, right around the same price. Got it for around the same price,
And is
and
this a 7-unit mobile home park or is it a 7-unit
mobile
uh
home park.
okay, got it. Okay, so the first
Yeah.
was a 4-unit mobile home park, not a quadplex. Okay.
No, no, no. Yeah, the first one was a 7 unit. The one of the ones that we still have is a 4 unit. So I sold the 7 unit. That was the one I cut my teeth on. When I bought that one, there was a home that needed to be demoed. So I unfortunately had to experience the expense and all the good stuff of just completely having to tear one down, bring one in, and all of that. But even that one, I'll give you an idea. We bought that one for around 168, and actually paid more for the four unit than I did for the 7 unit one. Just a little bit more, but had
Yeah.
multiple, bigger spot, bigger piece of land, and all these have been city utilities. And that one we were able to turn around from like rents in the 4 to 600 or 400 to 500 range, on up to the 900, 1,000 for one of the 3 bedrooms. Most of them were about 900 on that one. That one I probably shouldn't have sold because it was, my basis was pretty low. I did put about 100K into that one, and we ended up selling it for 475. And so, not a bad gain on that one. So I guess that gave me kind of a proof of concept for the gains that you can get. But I kind of kicked myself as to why I didn't just refinance it and hold on to it, because it had been turned around, and it was sort of close to my little 4 unit, so it made that 4 unit make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, how are you getting scrappy with the financing for these? Because I know that a lot of people will do seller finance deals with mobile home parks just because it's so difficult to get a bank involved. Just banks aren't necessarily, um, correct me if I'm wrong. Some of these mobile home parks they're almost seen as like vehicles because they're not like affixed to the property, and so banks are like, I don't want to lend on something that's gonna, potentially drive off here. How are you having success financing mobile home parks?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, on the first one that I did, it was a hard money loan that I did on that one. So I was paying interest only. And then the second mobile home park that I bought, um, I actually it had already been it was already being financed through a local bank, Security Service State Bank, here in San Antonio. And actually, they wanted to refinance because I had to provide obviously my financial statement. So they wanted to refinance the 7 unit for me. So they were good with it. The current one that we're in the process of turning around, that one I did do owner financing. things have changed obviously a little bit over the last, year or so. And so, we purchased this one in November of last year. And I went back to one of the hard money lenders that I had used because the occupancy when I bought this one was at 50%. And, so nobody's going to touch that. Most banks aren't going to touch it. Needed significant work. So I tried to get the hard money loan on it, and there just wasn't an appetite without a significant amount of money down. So I went back to the owners and I said, "Hey, look, I've tried this route. I'm going to need owner financing." Because they had originally said they might entertain that and then sort of backed away from it. Long and short, I've got owner financing on that one. And hope to have it in a spot where at least we can start with improving the. Well, we're at about 75% occupancy right now. Have done a significant turnaround. We've got three properties being worked on right now. Once those are ready to roll, then I should be in a position for the financials to start to stabilize where we can refinance it.
Okay. All right. So you are implementing some owner financing there. Well, what does the runway in future look like in your opinion with the mobile home park community? Because it seemed like 2008, 2009, it just created this great buying opportunity for years and years and years. I mean, you get like a 10 cap on some of these things, and then the space got kind of crowded. I still feel like it's pretty crowded. Cap rates have come down a lot. So we're kind of at this inflection point where we had, interest rates go up and things are leveling out. We've seen some distress in the commercial multifamily world with bridge debt. Not much in the multifamily world, or I'm sorry, the mobile home park world, just because of the financing techniques and everything that we've seen right here. What do you think the next 4 or 5 years have in store for this asset class?
Yeah, you're right as far as it being crowded. It's they're just like everything else. I mean, even multifamily's gotten to a spot where folks are it seems shifting gears to industrial, small industrial, those kind of things, and short storage units and whatnot. But I honestly think that it's gonna I think the cap rates are going to expand a little bit on it again, where it makes a lot more sense. What we target, Brandon, are really those properties that are somewhat troubled assets. So we may have to look at owner financing in the onset on a lot of them, and maybe do some type of a balloon where we have to refinance out at a specific amount of time once we've been able to turn it around. But I don't I don't know that the that people are going to stay necessarily. I mean, I don't expect that it's going to ease up too much.
Yeah.
It's still a good asset class, but it's not sexy like a lot of the other ones, which there's I talk to a lot of friends of mine that are in the multifamily space and self storage and whatever it may be. And mobile home parks. If you say that's what I do, it's kind of it's sort of still a little bit of a dirty word there. It's like,
Yeah.
you do what? Is there really money in that? And so it has a little bit of a stigma that I think is always going to keep it a little bit in a better spot. For some of us that want to stay in that space.
Mhm. Interesting. I was reading through your bio. You're doing so many things. You've worked your way up as a WG sales director. You've, got an agent business, brokerage business, flipping houses. You're doing mobile home parks communities. I'm just curious, how do you segment your time? How do you make decisions on where you're going to spend your time since you've had success in multiple avenues?
Yeah. Part of it I think would just be, number one, I have branched out in a lot of different spaces. And in some cases, as we were talking before the show, not all of them have worked out really well. Me and a partner did a flip and just, had every intention of, doing one first one and then rolling that into two and then to three and then, building a business out of it. Um, And that was a good reminder for me to just stay in my lane. Do what I know. And I'm starting to really feel that this, really getting my arms around the mobile home park space, and I just feel like, for me, staying in that lane is important. um, Short-term rentals, we've got one, and we bought that one as well with the intent of, not necessarily starting a huge short-term rental business, but with kind of a lifestyle idea of having, this one is in the Smoky Mountains, having one in the Smoky Mountains, maybe one a beach property, maybe another one in the Rocky Mountains, and just but they need the cash flow. They need to make sense, right? In order to keep adding them on. I don't want to have just a bunch of houses out there that we're maybe covering the mortgage, but there's not a lot of cash flow. And last year, with the one in the Smokies, it was it was a situation where, and we're not, when I say Smokies, we're in the North Carolina side of the Smoky Mountains. So I'm in Whittier, North Carolina, which is Bryson City, North Carolina. It's all kind of in the same part, but there's Smoky Mountain National Park, which is just about 10 minutes from our place out there. So
Yeah, Smoky Mountains is really good. You've got year-round tourism there, big family destination. I got a buddy of mine who's got like a luxury cabin out there. Man, it just brings in loads. You're limited by the supply as well. There's not a lot of available lots left, quite frankly, in the Smoky Mountains as well. So you kind of have that going for you.
right, right. So yeah, I mean it's our first year was our first year, and it wasn't it was we're managing it ourselves, so it wasn't a killer year with it, but we covered everything. This year's turning out to be a little bit better, but certainly am not in a spot where I'm like, okay, let sign me up for another short-term rental.
Yeah.
But however, as soon as we get that third mobile home park in a spot where we do the refinance, we'll be looking for another mobile home park.
So with all the success that you've had, what's next for you?
Yeah. So what's next is really just doubling and tripling down on the mobile home parks. My currently BoBo Capital Ventures is myself and my wife, and we have done all of these with our own capital.
Mhm.
And I'm a firm believer that we've got to get it dialed in, and in a spot where we feel very confident that we know what we're doing before we start raising capital from outside investors. So we've got one more ahead of us, Brandon, that we're going to do before we look to raise on a deal. But that's really what's next is us, working with some investor partners, and continuing to just grow that side of our business.
Hey, it's an excellent opportunity. You're in a very, very great niche. For those that want to learn more about you, learn more about your company, where should they go?
Yeah, so they can go to bobocv.com, and that stands for Bobo Capital Ventures, but Bobo, that's um, bocv.com. Also, I too have a podcast as well. I'd love for folks to check it out. And it's called The Wealth Flow. And then I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, all that stuff. So.
All right. We'll make sure all that stuff gets posted in the show notes. Go check out the Wealth Show. Go check out Keith's stuff. And if you're listening to this episode, share it with some friends and family. Do us a favor, leave us a review, send some love Keith's way. Keith, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, Brandon, I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.